Hi everybody, this video is talking about the R7's suspension setup and how I have changed my setup and why I've changed it to the way it is and what I perceive as benefits for that. And also we're going to talk about how the stock suspension is, it's budget. We know that. Can we make it workable? Of course we can, but also what improvements will we be doing long term on the bike? Now you'll have to forgive me because we are at the end of October here, well, middle of October here in Chicago, so the shadows are quite long at this time of the day, so you'll see me and my shadow moving around the bike, so forgive me for that. But on the R7 we have a number of adjustments that we can make to the forks and slightly less adjustment that we can make to the rear shock. And if we move over to the bike, let's talk about some of those things that we can actually adjust. So we have an adjustment on our right hand side fork for the rebound, so that regulates the push back of the forks come up, and on the left hand side we have the compression adjustment, which is the dampening effect as we brake or as the bike pitches forward. We try to regulate how quickly or how softly that happens. We also have an adjustment for preload, so that is how far in or out we turn the actual, what do you call it, gold orange piece on this. That decides how much we compress our forks already before we've even got on the bike. So, and then on the rear shock we have a preload adjustment in terms of this adjuster ring here. We can set that at different notches, which again loads up the spring on our shock higher or lower. And we also have on the other side a screw adjustment for I think that's rebound, just on the rear shock. Could be wrong, but I think that's what it is. So what adjustments have I made and why? Good question. So if you are aware or you aren't aware, the way that we adjust our suspension settings is in terms of clicks. So if you heard that there on the rebound adjustment, a quarter turn produces 1 click. And so when we talk about the adjustments for rebound and compression on the fork, we generally talk in terms of how many clicks back out do we take it from all the way wound in. So I recorded my factory settings, if you like, or how it came set up from the dealer, and so I've always got a record of that. So all I did was wind them in, and as I wound them in, counted how many clicks it took to wind in until I met some resistance. Don't force it, but if you feel that resistance, you've reached the end of the adjustment. And how many clicks it took is the setting to come back out to. So in terms of rebound, mine was set for 4 clicks out of a total of 15 clicks. And on the compression, it was set for 7 clicks out, and there's a total of 13 clicks from 0 to 100%, if you like. And the preload has had 5 rings visible on the orange adjuster. So how have I done it now? Well, now my preload is set for 3 rings visible, so that means that I have increased the preload on the fork. That's because I'm probably a bigger guy. I'm 6'3". I weigh 180 pounds without gear, and so I'm a little bit heavier than most perhaps. So I needed a bit of support for me. And one of the ways that you check that is to put on, you can put on a tire wrap on the stanchion here, and you can see how much travel you use in a general ride, maybe a fast-paced ride. How much travel have you used? and mine was coming, if you push up the tyre wrap to the top, as the fork compresses it pushes that back down, and my tyre wrap was literally about here. So I'm using probably 80, maybe 90% of the fork travel, which is, you know, for me an adequate amount. And you actually want to use most of the fork travel as part of your riding, because then the bike is actually doing what it's designed to do, using the length of travel that it's designed to do. And as the bike uses that compression on the braking, you're transferring the weight to the front, the tyre is gripping harder and harder because of that weight transfer, and you are pitched in a position, the geometry of the bike is ready to take that corner. Anyhow, so that's an adjustment I made to the preload. The rebound is actually one click out. So if I do that, one click back in, and I try to go any further than that, I meet resistance. So I literally have one click out. And why is that the case? Well, on the standard setup of the R7 fork, you really don't have a lot of control of the rebound. And don't exactly know why that is. The weight of the oil, the viscosity of the oil is such that when I push this bike down, and you'll see in a minute under a demonstration that I'm going to do, what we want is when the forks push back at us, we want to control that lift back up so that we just get one solid movement and then it's back to where it was. What we don't want is for that fork to come back at us and then pitch up and down and oscillate until it's found its resting position again. We want a nice smooth movement back up and come to rest without bouncing. That bouncing creates instability, which we don't want. The problem with the standard setup on the R7, even with almost maximum rebound, because you should never be on the resistance point, you should be back off at least one from all the way in. Even at that, I'm getting the stroke is coming at me too quickly. It comes up higher than the resting point and then back down again. The way to control that properly would be with some expensive internals, or you can change the viscosity of the oil in there to regulate that pushback even more, and that's something I'm going to be doing over winter, I think. On the rear shock, just to cover all bases, you might be able to see that I am on the softest setting for preload. And why did I do that? Well, I found that initially when I got the bike, the rear of the bike felt very harsh, very stiff, hard to compress, and I don't like that in a bike. I like the bike to move in its suspension travel and be forgiving. I don't want it ready to I don't want it using a small part of the suspension. I want the bike to be able to soak up the bumps as I'm going around a corner, and I want the bike to be forgiving. If the bike is forgiving, we can, you know, we have more margin for making a slight mistake and the bike not caring about it, the bike helping us. So I wanted the back to be softer than it was from factory, hence I put it on the softest preload setting. And even then, the static sag, which is something that we talk about, where how much of the weight of the bike is even compressing the spring. There was barely any compression under just the weight of the on bike, and you kind of want a certain percentage of weight of the bike already pushing on the spring. On the adjuster here on the back, I don't know if you can see that with the light, I have, let me just check. Again, I have one turn out from fully wound in. And again, I'm trying to get a regulation on the bounce at the back of the bike. I want it to be sufficiently soft, again, to be that little bit extra forgiving and to help me out on the bike. So those are my suspension settings, and I can put them on the screen, type them out so you can see. But there we go. So I'm going to do a demonstration now about the bounce on those forks, and you'll see what I mean hopefully about the extra bounce at the top of the stroke. So yeah, I hope you saw in that demonstration that the bike would pitch. So the way that I was testing that is to hold the bike against my leg on that side, grab a hold of the front brake, push down fairly hard to get the forks to compress, and then watch the reaction of the front of the bike as it comes back up again. And what you would see, if you were looking carefully enough, was that on the backstroke back up, we came further than the rest point and then back down again. And we're trying to get rid of that. What we want is to just come up smoothly to the same point from when we compressed it at. So that's what we're trying to achieve. The suspension on these bikes, is it good? To be honest, now that I've done my setup for my street riding, I have absolutely no complaints really. It's what I need for the street. I like it. It's not too hard anymore. It's fairly forgiving, and yeah, there are tweaks and things that I might do in the future, especially if we get the bike on track. But for now, it's good enough, and we can do some again experimentations, changing the fork oil, and there might be some improvements to be had there. We will see. But anyway, just thought I'd give you a little video on R7 suspension settings and what I've chosen to run for fast street riding. Haven't been on track yet, so don't know if it's any good for track. But anyway, thought I'd share that with you. Hope it's been useful. Any questions, obviously ask away in the comment section, and I will do my best to answer. Alright, thanks for watching guys. Bye.